Hi, good afternoon. I'm Kale Driemeier. I'm from the TxDOT headquarters in Austin, the Freight Trade and Connectivity branch. We're the ones who are putting on the El Paso and Far West Texas truck parking study. So I'll talk to you today about that. And of course, TxDOT's number one, well, I wanted to start out with saying why truck parking matters, and I'm sure in this audience, most of you know different reasons why it matters, but to call out a few things. TxDOT's number one goal is safety. That's why we talk about in the streak. That's why we work to create and maintain a safe roadway system. So in our study area alone, over the past 4 years, there have been 34 injuries and 4 fatalities involving parked trucks. So that certainly speaks to the safety aspect of truck parking. In terms of economic impact, as Texas has been growing population-wise, the freight passing through Texas, originating or destined to Texas has been increasing. With those increases, there's more truckers, more trucks on the road. They need to time their pickup and deliveries. They need safe truck parking to do that. And in terms of impact to the drivers themselves, so some statistics we have from our statewide truck parking study show that truck drivers are losing more than 9,000 revenue miles, translating into 4,600 in lost income. So for the drivers themselves, they're having to make difficult decisions on whether to park in an illegal or unsafe spot or whether to meet their truck parking regulations on the rest breaks. So these are all things we're trying to look at in the truck parking studies we're doing. So I think we can go on to the next slide. And to talk about the study area, I just wanted to give you an overview. So we're doing 2 studies right now, one in the Houston-Beaumont region, and then this one in El Paso, and the area to the east where there are rest stops as we get into the Midland, but stopping short of the Midland-Odessa area. We have gotten a lot of questions, why didn't we include Midland-Odessa in the study? We're certainly interested in what goes on in Midland-Odessa and how things in that region impact our study area. We're just trying to do these studies in smaller geographic groups. And going forward, we're envisioning a future study starting next year that would cover Midland-Odessa and parts of the Ports to Plains corridor, possibly also a study looking at Dallas-Fort Worth area. But I did want to make sure we mentioned that we have been talking to stakeholders in the Permian. Specifically, we've reached out to the Permian Basin MPO, Permian Strategic Partnership, MOTRAN, the Midland-Odessa Transportation Alliance, the Permian Basin Regional Planning Commission, the Permian Basin Petroleum Association, and of course, last but not least, the Permian Road Safety Coalition, who graciously allowed us to be here today. And I'll also mention that we've been working with New Mexico DOT. If you go to the New Mexico area to the west of El Paso, there's a major rail border crossing there, Santa Teresa. So we're looking at impacts, how that affects truck parking in the El Paso region. And do we have folks from New Mexico here today? Okay, a few of you. So New Mexico DOT has just kicked off their own truck parking study. I think that kicked off last month, but we're happy to put you in touch with the folks there if you're interested in getting involved or getting feedback into that study. And we do expect that the study results will come out this spring or summer. They'll be publicly available on our website, TxDOT.gov. You can look at freight planning, and they will be published there once the study's ready. And then I will turn it over to Brian Comer, who's our lead consultant.
Okay, I'll just use this. So, okay, if we can go to the next slide. So all of this isn't going to be new information to you, but one of the things that I just wanted to make everybody aware of is there are different types of needs for truck parking. So we all have electronic logs now, and now we're required to pull over for overnight rest breaks, but there's also 30-minute rest breaks that are in that, but that's not the only type of need. So one of the other challenges that we have is we have a lot of owner-independent drivers, and in some communities they're not allowed to park the rig at home, so they need a place to park basically during the time off when they're not driving. There's also, especially within this region, we heard there's a lot of need for staging parking, right? Not necessarily, this could be short-haul drivers, drayage drivers, a lot of the oil and gas industry, They're not necessarily allowed at their final destination or their gate until their appointed time, so they're waiting on a cell phone, and they need some place just to basically stage. Emergency parking, this is a significant one that we've heard within this region at the I-10, I-20 split. You're all aware, as it gets in the winter months, that often becomes icy. Trucks can't make it up the incline, and then I-20 and I-10 are shut down. There's no place for the trucks to go. There's no long-term parking for the trucks to go. This is a significant issue that we've identified in terms of the need for a safe place to pull over. And then also at the border, what we've heard is that folks often get caught at the border crossings and there's no place to go to the bathroom, there's no place to stage, or if they're waiting, there's also needs for that. So this study addresses all of the different types of truck parking needs that are out there. So we just got a couple of slides, and none of this is new information to you, but we've actually collected information on where trucks are actually parked at different times of the day based on cell phone data and cab data. We don't necessarily know anything about the drivers themselves, but just the locations themselves. And typically when we do these studies, we see trucks that are parked overnight, right? Overnight hours for rest breaks, and we see this on I-20 and I-10, but this particular region, and again, Ward and Reeves and Culberson and the counties that we have surrounding have a significant amount of trucks that are parked overnight. But if we go to the next slide, oh, that's just shown here. If we go to the next slide, there's also a significant amount of trucks that are parked during the day, right? These are trucks that are staging and have staging needs, and one of the things that you'll see is this is all over the region, right? Due to the oil and gas industry, one of the things that we've heard is, again, truck drivers just waiting for their appointment times, and they're typically pulled over on the side of the road. We want to make sure that they have a safe place to go. So this is one thing. It's not just on I-10 and I-20. It's all of the major road network and the freight network all throughout the region. And we've heard earlier from the tables in the back, and we're identifying hot spots and needs. Basically, these are all over the region in terms of the need for truck parking. So a few of the things that we heard, if we go to the next slide here. In Terrell County, we heard that there's sometimes 100 trucks backed up in town due to ice and road closures. So ice and road closures are a significant issue. Road infrastructure and communities are being negatively impacted by trucks, and this is why communities are now enacting ordinances where trucks can't be parked on local streets because they weren't built for trucks. And then the most significant is just in between jobs, truck drivers have to wait for dispatch and need safe places to park. Typically, this is handled through a cell phone. But within the local communities, what we're hearing is they definitely understand the need. But again, funding is an issue, especially for the smaller cities and counties. And that's one of the things that we want to address specifically within the study. So we're collecting information. We collected information all throughout the summer and we'll continue through the fall. And now we're identifying improvement strategies. So we want to know where do we need to provide truck parking, what type of truck parking, what types of amenities, those types of things. We clearly understand it goes beyond the safety rest areas on I-10 and I-20 within this region. So we want to hear all of your ideas and thoughts. And we're going to collect that information. We're actually going to develop an action plan that's going to identify specific improvements, including new truck parking capacity at areas. We're going to identify ways to be able to pay for these and actually able to develop that action plan, which will roll out within the spring. So this is going to be an interactive part of the presentation. So this is one time during a luncheon event, we're going to ask you to get your cell phones out. So if you could all get out your cell phones. And there's a QR code that you'll see on the screen. If you're not able to use that code, you can also open a web browser and go to www.menti.com. And that's also up there on the screen there. And then once you've got on www.menti.com, there's a code that's 3864-3233. 3864-3233. So I'll give everybody just a minute to get logged on. We're going to go to some other slides, and that information is also going to be up on the slide. But this is our opportunity to hear from all of you. So everybody got it? We've got some folks floating around. If you're having a problem, you can also use that QR code. If the QR code is not working, just type in menti.com into your web browser and then use that code you see there. Okay, well, we'll go ahead and go to the next slide, and then we've got a test question. So this is something you're actually going to type in. So what we want to know is, what is your favorite thing about the fall? So if you type it in, it's going to appear up on the screen, and we can see everybody's answers in real time. Again, at the top, you'll see that joinmenti.com, www.menti.com, and then there's the code at the top, and then it's also at the bottom of the screen. So we can actually see your answers, and the most common answers come up larger. This is a word cloud, so we've certainly got cooler weather and weather. We've got football, which is no surprise within this region. Tamales, hunting. So you can see how this is working. So if everybody has a chance to be able to get on, I want to make sure that everybody is able to get on and see your responses. Anybody having any trouble? Okay, I think we've got it. And then you can also have some other write-in candidates. So as we go through, we've got different polling questions, but you could also provide different input through this. So let's go ahead and go to our first question. So one of the things that we want to know is, and this could be for you as a driver, or it could be your company, or it could be just based upon your local knowledge of the area. So what percentage of truck trips require the driver to wait or stage? In other words, you can't go to the final facility and park there at the facility. They want you to wait until you get a call on your cell phone or through dispatch or that sort of thing. That's one of the things that we want to know. Is there a significant amount? And it looks like half or more than half, a significant number of more than half are required to wait and stage. And the reason that we're asking this is we did hear this as a particular parking need, right? The reason you're seeing trucks parked over on the side of the road is because they're not allowed at that facility until their appointment time, so there's a need for that. And it looks like we're also getting a lot of thumbs up in terms of just what we're seeing. We'll just wait until we get all of the responses. And again, yeah, this is not surprising. This is pretty consistent with what we're hearing. And again, in terms of the types of parking facilities, this goes beyond the traditional safety rest area. We need to identify areas that are close to those final destinations or hot spots where we need to provide some additional parking. Okay, let's go ahead and go to the next one. So about how long do drivers typically have to wait? So what we want to know is how long do you need to be at that location? Because in some instances, it may be, if it's a short amount of time, maybe you don't need facilities or restroom facilities or that type of thing. But basically, you know, how long are you waiting at that location? And this tells us what types of amenities that we need to think about. So we've got less than an hour, 1 to 2 hours, 2 to 4 hours, 4 to 6 hours, or more than 6 hours. So, and this is, again, it could be a reason that we're seeing a significant amount of trucks waiting, right, is because they have to wait for some time for those locations. It's not like they're pulled over. So, and this is pretty consistent with what we're hearing. We're saying typically that staging parking is about 2 hours, and we're seeing a majority of the responses 1 to 2 hours and 2 to 4 hours. So that's pretty consistent with what we're hearing. And again, we've got some comments here, and it looks like you know, we're on we're on company time, and that's the other thing, just in terms of, like, you know, getting paid. You know, different companies are different types of things. So depending on how long you have to wait and stage, that could be time and money as well. Okay, let's go ahead and go to the next one. So does your company or customer provide a place to park while the driver waits to load or unload? So we understand some companies actually provide a location. Maybe they only provide a location for their drivers, but this is something that we're also just trying to understand is the facilities that you go to, do they actually allow you to park at that facility, or are they making you wait? So this is another way of just kind of asking that, but we just want to kind of know within this region what we're seeing. So sometimes, maybe depending upon the company, and we're seeing no, but we do see some yes. So some companies are actually able to provide areas, and that is one of the comments that we heard at the table is, hey, it would be great if some of these companies or locations would provide a place for me to stage as well, which was something that we could look at. And it says, no, we are the facility that they're waiting at as well. So that's something that we want to know. So if you're a company, and certainly you could talk to us at the table, we would want to understand, like, what types of accommodations that you provide there as well. Okay, let's go to the next question. So where do drivers park while they're waiting? So while you're waiting, we want to know basically where you're parking. And you can write in some things as well. So these are just some of the common responses that we've heard. A roadway shoulder, a vacant lot. We have company property here, so it could be company property if that's appropriate, truck stop or other. Certainly we heard at the table that, hey, we'd like to park at a truck stop, but they're full at certain hours and there's no place to park. So that could be a consideration as well. Again, roadway shoulder, this is something that we're seeing a lot. And we've also heard that there's a lot of parking that's going on in vacant lots as well. And that's, again, I think that's a symptom of there's no place to park, right? I don't believe that the drivers want to park on a roadway. I don't think that's their choice. But we've heard once their electronic log is up, they've got to find a safe place to park. So side of location or road at a Whataburger. That's a good one. So interestingly enough, this is one of the things that we've heard in terms of where you're providing facilities. So people want to be, the reason they want to be close to a community is they want to go to Whataburger. They want to go a place to get something to eat. They want to do laundry. They want to have those types of services. And that's one of the things that they say they don't necessarily isn't met at a safety rest area. So that is a very, very good comment. So we're seeing a wide mixture. But we're seeing a lot of companies are providing parking on property, but we're seeing a lot of parking that's occurring on the roadway shoulders as well, which is consistent with what we've heard. So while drivers are waiting, how far are they willing to drive to find a safe parking facility with restrooms? So we know that the Permian area, all these surrounding counties, we understood how far people are driving today and how far they're typically driving. And these facilities are expensive, especially when we're talking about adding facilities, right? But what we want to know is how far would you be willing to drive if it was a safe location, if it had restrooms, that sort of thing. Because it's hard to provide parking everywhere, right? These facilities are very expensive. Again, folks are willing to drive 1 to 5 miles, some maybe 5 to 10, but 10 to 20, not necessarily. And again, those safety rest areas are, they're pretty far apart in terms of where they are. The major truck stops are within the communities, but they're not within those areas that are served by the oil and gas community. So again, this is pretty consistent with what we've seen. And it says when you got to go, you got to go. So this is one thing that I will note. The problem with parking along the side of the road if they're not facilities is we're seeing that, right? We're seeing that bio-waste and other types of things. And I think this is the common complaint that we're hearing from folks is just that they need to be at facilities. If they're longer than 2 hours, they need to have some sort of facility that's there. So. And it says, depends on prices. So, yep, absolutely. And then obviously the wait times, the other. So let's go ahead and go to the next one. So this is for independent drivers, or if you know of any independent drivers. So while off duty, where do drivers typically park, park their trailer? So, I'm sorry, the first one does have a company yard. So typically we know that major companies allow them to park there, but if you're an independent driver and your community no longer allows you to park that in your neighborhood, where are you going? So roadway shoulder, vacant lot. There's a few paid parking area that we do want to talk about, or other. So truck stops, I think, is noted. If it's other, if you could go ahead and type in, what that is. But again, that's one big thing that we've seen is there's no dedicated areas that are there, not a lot of paid parking areas. There's a lot of companies that are out there that do provide safety and security, but we're not seeing much of it in this region. But most folks, if they belong to a company, it looks like they could park at a company yard, which is good. Okay, next question. So how far from home are drivers willing to drive for secure parking, right? So this is the other location. If we're providing secure parking, and this has like gated areas, other types of facilities, lighting, that sort of thing. So looks like a lot would drive 10 miles. And a few more would drive 10 to 30 miles. But again, typically if these are going to be located within a community, you might be driving 10 to 20 miles, especially within this region. So it looks like a lot want to be fairly close to home, which is understandable. Okay, next slide. So there were a few that pay for parking, and this is basically for secure overnight parking. If you're an owner-independent driver, you can't park your car at home. Basically, this is a rental facility, or you're renting a spot for your truck. So if drivers pay for parking, what we want to know, is it monthly, is it weekly, is it daily, or do you not pay for parking? And we understand a vast majority of drivers, and that's here, don't currently pay for parking. So it looks like if they do pay for parking, it's either monthly or daily. And we've got some comments in terms of what they typically provide. And I think, Vicki, does that say 100 a month? So I guess if the folks, how much do we typically pay per month if it were a pay, was like 100 a month? About that? Okay. That makes sense. Because the other thing is there are some companies out there that do have a business model for that. So they're developing a number of facilities throughout the country with, safe and secure parking. Again, especially as a lot of communities are instituting ordinances where you can't park at home. So that's good to know. Okay. So that was very, very helpful. So thank you for participating and providing that input. Again, we're going to be at the tables to provide some more specific input, including specific locations where we don't have parking and where we need it. So we clearly have seen that the truck stops are typically over capacity and that there aren't enough places to park and that the parking needs within this region are kind of everywhere. So please join us after the meeting. The entire project team is going to be over there. We're right over there where Kale is at the tables, and certainly we'd like to get as much input as possible as we develop this plan. So thank you.